Gwen Ifill was a groundbreaking journalist who covered the White House, Congress, and national campaigns during 3 decades for the Washington Post, the New York Times, NBC, and most prominently, PBS, as a weekly anchor of the NewsHour show.
Good evening. I'm Gwen Ifill of the PBS NewsHour.
Born in 1955 from humble beginnings in Queens, New York, Gwen was the daughter of immigrants and was one of 6 siblings. Gwen would always mention how she and her family would watch the news together as a family and not see anyone who remotely resembled them. There were no women and no people of color. Despite that, in 1964, at the age of 9 years old, Gwen realized that she wanted to become a journalist, the same year that Congress passed the Civil Rights Act.
I discovered at an early age that I had the ability to change the atmosphere in the room.
Her father, a pastor from Panama, was very involved in the politics of the 1960s. He became a pastor in the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Her mother was a homemaker from Barbados. Both her father and her mother were her pillars of strength, as of course was her religion. Because of her curiosity and her passion for storytelling and helping people understand what was going on in the world around them, Gwen began her career as a reporter in the late 1970s. She wrote for various newspapers, including The Times, and quickly developed a niche for herself as a political journalist at a time when Black journalists and Black female reporters were rare. Gwen eventually made the transition to television. Finally, in 1999, she earned a permanent spot at PBS after becoming one of the most respected political journalists. She was also the first African American woman to moderate a vice presidential debate and to host a major weekly political affairs program. She achieved her highest visibility as the moderator and managing editor of the public affairs program Washington Week on PBS. In more recent years, she hosted town hall-style specials for PBS centered on race relations, police shootings, and gun violence.
The eruptions are about race, but not only about race. They are about justice, but not only justice. They periodically inflame a persistent bruise that refuses to heal, and certainly never will until we learn to talk to each other, not at each other.
Gwen remained in the forefront of journalism as a Black woman in the field dominated by white men. She told an audience of journalism students in 2013, "Diversity is essential to the success of the news industry, and journalists must include diverse voices in their coverage in order to reach a broader audience." As a co-host and co-managing editor of PBS's NewsHour, she hoped to become the role model that she lacked as a young girl. She wanted girls to watch her and think it was the norm to be an African American woman anchor. For young women of color looking for a role model, she was it. And as a pioneer for young women, her successful career inspired an entire generation of women of color to pursue journalism.
You can be the person who turns toward, not away from the chance to rise above the fray. And you can be the person who trains yet another generation to do better at it than you did.
Gwen believed that the search for truth and the search for justice were not incompatible, and were in fact essential. And as a result of that, she authored the book, The Breakthrough: Politics and Race in the Age of Obama, in 2009, which traced a post-civil rights generation of African American politics. When her health deteriorated, she still managed to keep her strength and resilience. Gwen Ifill died on November 14, 2016, in Washington, D.C., and she remains one of the most prominent TV anchors of her generation.